Mhm.
Should be a live tab at the top now.
I'm seeing it on my side. It says it's live on Facebook.
There we go. Maybe it's been recording this whole time. That would be less. There we
Surprise,
go.
surprise.
It's possible. We can edit that all out. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Vortex Energy Podcast, where we interview interesting people who have a message to help others awaken and reach their ultimate health and spiritual goals. And today's podcast is sponsored by Peace and Harmony. I'm playing this in the background during this episode to help generate 1 million pockets of peace. It helps remove stress and tension to create your own personal peace pocket. You can go to Peace and Harmony, download and .com and enjoy. So welcome, Allura.
Thank you, Barbara. It's just a pleasure to be with you today. There's a lot happening today. It's a very exciting time.
It really is. And I want to share a little bit about Allura. I had the opportunity to meet her personally just at the beginning of this year. Many of our listeners have met or heard about David Adelson a lot. This is David's ex-wife, Allura, and they've done an awful lot of energy work together. And Allura has been dedicated to helping women leave self-doubt, uncertainty, and feelings of unworthiness behind to emerge as the confident, powerful, deserving goddesses that they were meant to be. She's America's #1 goddess guide. I love that. I love that saying. And we're going to talk all about goddesses today because that's what Allura's new book is all about. She's been a meditation teacher since the 70s. She studied with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and has trained teachers across the globe. She's now a master healer and works with quantum goddess energies. She's certified in several modalities, and she has created more than 150 divine healing products to help us through this intense transitional time. She's also a writer, editor, and speaker. Her website is divinehealingenergies.com, and she can be reached at peaceandharmonyco.com. We've got a couple minutes to dive into how your new book came about. And it's an awesome title of the book. I just love it. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with that, Allura. Let the goddess shine through, discovering the remarkable
Terrific.
beings you are.
Terrific. The whole thing has an actually spectacular story, I felt. And I also have another website that I didn't put on there. It's called letyourgoddessshine.through.com, which is the name of the book. I met you at this conference, the New Media Summit in California, in early March, just before lockdown. And I told a transformational book expert there that I just didn't have a book in me right now. It wasn't happening for me at that point. But then a couple days after I got back, I experienced huge downloads of all sorts of energy and all sorts of information that should go in the book, what the book should be about. And I was the one to write it, and the different sections in the book, and so on and on and on it went. So I spent the next several weeks, 6 or 8 weeks, writing the book. Some of it was taking dictation, and some of it was doing some research, because I talk about different goddesses in different traditions in the world. And I came up with this book, and this is what it looks like. I'm getting a mirror image from here. I don't know what you're seeing, but this is Let Your Goddess Shine Through. And the name was a tough one. I went through all sorts of iterations on the name because I knew what I wanted to express, something about being an empowered goddess. But all of the good names that I could think of were taken with websites, with domain names. And I struggled with that for several weeks. And then one day I was talking to David on the phone and telling him I was trying to get this name together. And he said, in the way that he does, let your goddess shine through. And I thought, that says everything I wanted to say in a very simple way. So that's how the title of the book came about, the only contribution that David had to the creation of this book. front and center, as always. But yes, I know my imagination completely deserted me when I was thinking of a title, or that is not true. It's just that the titles that I thought of were taken, but
Yeah.
this
No,
works
no,
well.
that's good. And
And
but you've
this
been
works.
doing a lot of healing work for many, many years. What are some of the, when we talk, you mentioned a lot about meditation and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. How has that influenced your life?
Oh, completely. I started meditating when I was 19, and that just changed the whole trajectory of my life. It was something I absolutely knew was right and true and good, and that I needed to be doing it. And I was never one to have big flashy experiences about with the meditation or anything else, but I just knew intuitively that this was the way for me to go. And I knew it so much that when I had a chance to take advanced courses, I did. And I traveled to California first. And then I signed up for a teacher training course. And a couple years after I learned to meditate, I was made a TM teacher. And I went to several
Yeah.
different places around the country and taught TM. But it just shaped the whole way my life turned out. So meditating was something that I have never regretted, and I have always just loved how it has enhanced my life. And I think it opened me to all sorts of things in my life that I never would have considered before. I remember reading the Conversation with God books, and that was
Yeah.
an eye-opener, because I realized that I was having some conversations too. And you could think of it as just talking to yourself inside, or you could look at it in a bigger way and discern that this was probably somebody else coming to your, not exactly to your rescue, but to be with you and to help you along in the different ways. And this was a
Well, we
natural
work,
progression.
yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the whole divine feminine and the gods and goddesses concept in general. How do you describe goddess, and how would you define that really?
There are different ways to look at it, of course, and different spiritual teachers have different things that they say about it. And I've learned not to judge about that, because sometimes what somebody is saying sounds very superficial. Like they have, I just got a testimonial from somebody today who read the book, and she was talking about other teachers that have goddess mugs that they sell, and t-shirts and things like that. But it could be just a way that they have to express what is a little bit deeper. And for me, it goes very deep. It goes to the divine, absolutely to the divine. And one thing that I learned when I was meditating is to always go for the highest and biggest and best first. And to me, that was going within and contacting and dipping my toes and dipping my whole body into the transcendent itself, the absolute, the state of wholeness itself. And because that is so profound an experience, when I think of goddess and when I start to engage with goddesses, they come from that level. And one of the first things that I did, just to illustrate where I am and where I've come from, one of the first things I did when I started doing healing work, and by the way, I was such a slow student when it comes to healing, I did not realize that I could do it until David actually told me. He said, okay, you can do this. And he explained a few things, and I got started. But one of the first experiences that I had with doing divine healing work is to create a series of, they're called divine blessing drops right now. They've gone through several different names, and they carry divine energy and intelligence and divine intentions for different particular areas of life, like joy of life, like bliss, like blood pressure, different things like that, all along the gamut. And when I created those were created at this very deep, deep level. The deepest level, just to illustrate, the deepest level of the relative is here. And it's not here, we know that, but this is just an illustration. And it bumps up against the absolute. And this is the absolute that is just about to start manifesting into form at that point. And at that point, this level of creation itself is the level of the divine. That's the level where the tinctures that I made came from. And this is the level where the divine resides. It's as if they have one foot in the absolute and one foot in the relative. They span both areas of life. So when I think of goddesses, I think of the actual divine being who resides in this particular area, this level of consciousness, this level of being. And I'm most drawn to the Hindu gods and goddesses, and particularly the goddesses, and particularly Divine Mother. For me, she is rather amazing. And I call upon many other divine beings of love and light, but always through Divine Mother, because I know her source. I know she is pure and true, and anything coming through her is going to reflect that pureness and trueness. So
That's
this is
really
what
what
I
I
mean.
wanted to dive in a lot, because we've worked with Divine Mother here a lot, and
Good.
both through Kuan Yin and through Mother Mary and Mary
Yeah.
Magdalene. And Shekinah was the first major goddess that came through to me. So that's why I really wanted to dive in deep into your viewpoints on the different layers and levels of Divine Mother, and the different layers of the goddess and the goddess within that we all represent.
Yeah. So the goddess is within each of us in more than one way. Each of us came in with particular energies, and particularly everyone who is drawn to watching this show, I think is going to have a very profound understanding and a profound potential to achieve amazing things in their lives. So the goddess, Divine Mother, and she's a goddess from the Hindu tradition. It's the mother aspect of God. And she manifests, as you said, in different forms at different times, in different places in creation. But I just go with the Divine Mother primarily. But all the goddesses have amazing things. When we say that the goddess is within, we can be talking literally. We could be carrying divine goddess energy. We could be carrying Mother Mary energy, or Mahalakshmi energy, or Saraswati energy, or any of the other amazing divine beings of love and light. We don't, even if we're female, we don't necessarily need to be carrying the goddess energy. I mean, it could be definitely the male counterpart that we could be carrying as well, because sex is it's not an absolute thing when you're working on divine levels or more subtle levels, so that we don't necessarily have to be a goddess emitting divine energy or carrying divine energy. It can be the energy of the male counterpart as well. And
that's, I did want to talk about that a lot as well, because I know there are going to be a lot of men who are going, well, what about me? What about me? What about my? They're not looking for the goddess within, but that balance of divine masculine and divine feminine are all related, and each of us holds both of those energies. How do you feel about that?
I actually have a quote on my homepage of Let Your Goddess Shine Through, from a man who read Let Your Goddess Shine Through and gave his opinion about it. And he says that we can all benefit from it. It's pretty universal. I speak in terms of goddess, and I speak primarily to the female audience, because that's where I was guided to speak to. And that's
Yeah.
the audience that is going to be a little bit more receptive than the men, although I think a lot of men are waking up as well. When we talk about the divine within, you can think of it as the goddess or the god, the small g god, but it is the divine within. And it doesn't have to be named. It doesn't have to be that you need to know what kind of energy that you carry. We all have a spark of the divine within us, and it can all be brought out to our benefit. So it doesn't matter. There are some men who carry goddess energy and vice versa. That doesn't really matter. That's not a divine consideration when they're thinking about how we create this person and give them their gifts.
I always view it in the way that, to me, the divine mother is that full loving mother that has no judgment, whereas so many religions have looked at the father god as the judgment. In the same way, many patriarchal families, the father comes home and that's when the punishment comes down, is metered out for the day. But the divine mother, to me, represents just massive outpouring of love, just wishing the best for all that you can be. And she wishes it for both men and for women, because it's just that unbounded extension of love.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
But it's not that Divine Mother is the only one. Every
Right.
aspect of God has that quality to it. And when you talk about a God of retribution or someone who has what we see as kind of negative human qualities, that's most likely a misinterpretation of what the divine is. Because every divine being of love and light that I have ever had the blessing to encounter has been all loving and all desiring of helping us. And all that's missing is our awareness and our asking. And I do want to emphasize, and I'll get back to the divine feminine in just a second, but I do want to emphasize, I'm sure you've talked about it many times in your show, we don't need to know even who we're talking to exactly. All we need to do is ask, and ask
Yeah.
whoever it is that comes, that they come in the name of God, just to make sure that nobody of a lesser state tries to sneak in.
Mm.
But the divine
Yeah,
feminine,
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because there are a lot of people right now, I think, are getting very confused, because I come across a lot of people lately who are really feeling the connection to the other side. And I mean the other side in meaning any other dimension, many other dimensions. And they're not understanding, everyone is not understanding yet, that there are many different types of dimensions out there. They're
yeah,
not all the highest form of purity, if you will.
yes. And that viewpoint, I agree with it. And that for me came from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, because he
Mhm.
always wanted to go to the highest first.
Yeah.
And anything less than the highest is not going to help us as much. And I don't want to step on any toes, but I just want to say that generally speaking, if you have someone who has departed, while it may give you absolute comfort to connect with them, you may get some information that is useful to you, but unless they are a divine being who was here in physical form, they are going to have a limited outlook themselves. And as wonderful as they might be, they are not going to help you as much as the actual divine. And if you
I'm
feel
really glad we're
uncomfortable,
having this conversation, because it's come up actually a lot lately,
yeah,
in the past few weeks. literally.
Interesting. This must be the time for it to get out there then.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's partially because so many people are able to connect now to other dimensions and other sides, whether it's to direct meditation. And so helping them learn to discern and to request that they're speaking to the highest level possible versus just, oh, I got some information. It's like looking for that one little satellite connection and some little ping comes back. In the beginning,
Yeah.
that's how I think we all start trying to understand what is these other connections, but asking for the highest divine source possible, I think that's a great way to phrase it.
I always, when I'm working with somebody to help them connect with the divine themselves, I always suggest whoever comes, just say, do you come in the name of God? Apparently there's some sort of code of conduct among all the beings that they
Is
can't
that
say they come in
I
the
haven't
name of
heard that
God
one.
if they don't. Oh, it's the only way that I know how to express it. But
Yeah.
they can't say they come in the name of God if they don't. And sometimes you have to go back to the drawing board and try to find the the pure source.
Another connection.
Yes. I uh,
That's
I
good.
love what you said though about so many people are connecting these days.
Yeah.
So true. So many gifts are opening up
Yeah.
within us all. And that's one reason why I think the time is really ripe. It was ripe for this book to come out.
Yeah.
It's right for people to begin to explore their inner landscape even more and to start to put those gifts to use, because sometimes those gifts have their, actually almost all the time, those gifts have their origin in the divine. So they are something to be cherished and something to be nurtured. You just want to make sure you're on the right track.
I wanted to hit a couple of chapters that are later in your book. One of them
Okay.
is the time of the COVID-19 part of this massive shift. How do you feel about that? Do you want to share that, a sneak peek of that with our listeners who haven't had a chance to buy your book yet? Although the link is down below for people to buy the book now, and it's on sale. I'm just going to say it's on sale right now if you want to go buy it.
Oh, and I would absolutely love for as many people as possible to buy the book, not because it's going to make me a lot of money at 99 cents. It's not going to do that. But, and this is 99 cents US, it, but because the information in there is valuable to people, it needs to get out. And it's something, it's almost a labor of love that I'm doing with the Divine Mother to get this out. COVID-19. I think a lot of that I actually took dictation from Divine Mother on for what's happening with COVID-19, but absolutely this time is a time of major transition. Now, we've known about this kind of thing that was going to happen, major transition, not necessarily the form it took, for a long time.
Yeah.
We have known that things were going to ramp up, and I know several different systems. I know that in the TM movement, Maharishi used to talk about a phase transition, where in physics things bubble up to the point where they just switch over. And I don't know I have been told the physics behind this so many times, but this is not how my mind functions. But still, it is a time of transition. And that's one thing you learn when you start connecting with the divine. You learn who you are, and you learn to defer to the divine, because who we are is, even if we're very highly evolved, is going to be far less than Divine Mother, for instance. COVID-19, I'm getting off here. It's part of this major transition. Obviously, it's changed the world in the short time, although sometimes it seems like a long time that it's been around. And I have heard some other spiritual leaders say some interesting things, like this is an opportunity for all of us to learn and to grow. I know this was a time when I went within and I got this book. I birthed the book, And you can learn from the whole experience. You can develop your gifts. You can do the things that you're called upon to do, whether you feel like you're called upon to do them or not, or if you think it's just an idea that you have, or whether you chafe at the bit and you are just kicking and screaming all the way through every aspect of this whole pandemic and all of the social changes that went with it. You can either flow along smoothly doing what you're meant to do and transform and shift in the highest and best ways for you, or if you're one of the kickers and screamers, you might have to be taken through the lesson more than once. So I would suggest everyone try to learn as quickly as possible. And everyone will learn. It's just that some people are learning a lot more slowly than others.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that really applies to anyone who's listening, because if it were, they wouldn't be listening.
Yeah, there is that.
Yes.
And I want to move, because that is a really challenging thing for a lot of people now, to let go and relax through this and just do the best they can without fighting at every corner, and allowing the time to transform their life and their business and their relationships. Instead of worrying about how quickly they can get out, it's about how quickly can they go deeper within.
I
And this
love that.
quiet time was very much given for a reason. And like you said, some people have taken advantage of it. And again, we get calls, a lot of calls now, people who have gone so far within, they're now hearing these deeper, much deeper connections. And now they are very much seeking more information. What do I do with this information now? So I think your book is very, very timely on helping people to both discern what is it coming from a highest source possible, and what do you do with that information now? How do you incorporate that, embody that, and be a goddess yourself? How do you allow that to expand?
Some of it just takes time. Some of it takes letting go. And some of it takes realizing that if you have the intention to do that, that you are well begun on your journey. Having
Yeah,
the intention is so powerful, as you well know. When you have the intention to do something, it puts it in the works. And of course, asking for divine help with it all is enormously helpful, because they can bring you things that you might not have thought of, whether they bring you a book to read, like Let Your Goddess Shine Through, or a podcast to listen to, like your podcast, or a friend to talk to, or stumbling upon an online community or something. If you are alert, then it is easier to see directions from what is coming to you. But don't worry if you miss a few steps along the way, because the divine will always be there, and they will always desire and work for your success. They can't, of course, interfere directly, but they can help you in
yeah,
a variety of ways from within you and from within other people. Not that they're working through other people. Well, they can be working through other people, but they don't maneuver other people in order
yeah.
to do what you need done.
So one of the chapters, it says, why should you allow the goddess within, empower your inner goddess? So are you willing to share a little bit of those secrets that are in the book? Why should someone allow that to happen? Maybe they're already feeling good. They already give insights. They're already on their path. Why should they open up even further to their inner goddess?
First, almost everybody that's on the path is continually open and continually looking around, even if they're perfectly satisfied. I have been perfectly satisfied with transcendental meditation for more than 40 years. But this new awakening happened with healing gifts, and it just goes in a flow like that. when you are alert to things that come to you and you are highly evolved, you can get a feeling about whether it is a good thing or a negative thing. Now, this is a tricky thing too, because sometimes you only need to get past a little barrier to go on to something wonderful. But again, we are doing the best we can and moving at the rate that's highest and best for us to move on. Again, with this audience particularly. One
Yeah.
thing that I say in the book is that choosing to allow your goddess to awaken and emerge and to grow and expand is at once the most selfish and unselfish thing you can do all together. And it's
Now,
absolute.
define that a little bit. Elaborate a little bit on that, would you?
It is completely selfish because you will feel better. You will feel happier. You will feel more fulfilled. You will feel like you are getting to know yourself and getting to love yourself, and will overall be in a more prepared situation to handle this world. And the unselfishness about it is that as you grow, your consciousness grows, and you lend that consciousness to the whole group consciousness of the planet, and you uplift the planet, and
Yeah.
you help everyone at the same time. So selfish
That's
and
great.
unselfish all together.
I like that explanation. That's a really great way that makes it easy, I think, to understand how
Good.
helping yourself on a spiritual level helps everybody around you on a much, much greater scale, for sure.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. You ready to are you ready to dive into the some really quick questions that we ask all of our guests?
Sure.
So, what is the greatest spiritual lesson in all of this for you?
Writing the book was a transformative experience. It helped me to grow. And while I knew that there was a huge bonfire of divinity within me, it helped solidify everything. And
I think that could be the next title of your book, The Bonfire of Divinity.
that's good. Yes. Oh, why didn't I think of that? And by the way, when I answer questions like this, it's not necessarily me that is coming out with the words. The words are sometimes just given to me and I speak them out. But yes, even people who have been at this for decades and decades, if they are truly aware of what is happening of their own growth, they realize in almost all cases they are not there yet, and they're being where you want to be, where you're growing to, because whenever you get to a new level, there's always a further level that you can grow to.
Yeah.
So it never stops. The growth never stops. And can you repeat the question?
No, that was good. That was good. The next question, what is consciousness?
Consciousness is often used on a very surface level. Consciousness, well, we all have a consciousness. It's part of our being. And when I think of consciousness, I don't necessarily think of our individual consciousness. I think of pure consciousness, which underlies all of creation. And this is the level of the absolute, para, the wholeness, level of wholeness that is so deep within us. It's the aim and end goal, or the aim of, not the end goal, but of meditation, of many forms of meditation. Some of them have different ways of doing things and different things they're aiming for. And this pure consciousness is what underlies all of us. It's what makes us all one. We've heard the concept of oneness before, and we're all connected through this pure consciousness. And it's just there. And our individual consciousness can grow by tapping the source of pure consciousness. Anything else you want to ask about that? That's all that's coming right now.
No, that's good. We're just going to do little short answers. As deep as these questions are, what is your definition of God?
You gave me an advance copy of this list, and I saw this question. And I thought, what am I going to do with this?
You could say, I don't have one. Because you almost answered it in the last question.
Yes, I mean, God is just there, and God is the highest. And I can say something that was told to me years ago when I was first starting my journey of connecting with the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
And one of my teachers, I asked her, you know, sometimes I'm confused because I want to say thank you to Mother and thank you to God, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And she told me, first of all, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. That is a very human kind of thing, and that's not divine.
Yeah.
But what she said was from Mother was that thank God. Ask me for help and thank God.
Oh, that's very interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
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 Awesome. So, well done. So, Allura, what does your spiritual practice look like on a daily basis? Or do you
Every
have one? Do you
day.
have a
Oh,
practice?
absolutely. I have the TM technique and the whole TM City program, which is an advanced TM program that I do twice a day, every day. So when I get up, most times these days, I just take my trip to the bathroom and then go back and sit down and start meditating. And I do this meditation for an hour or an hour and a half, depending upon whether I'm tired. And if I'm tired, I fall asleep or something like that. And that's okay. But so that's what it starts with. And then I do other activity during the day. But I also do healing work. So a lot of what I do deals with connecting with the divine. I often also take courses given by other healers because I'm always looking for different ways to express and experience my own divinity. And then in the evening, 5-ish or something like that for me, I sit down and I meditate again. And I don't, some days are immersed almost all the time in spiritual activity, but most of the time I try to get some activity, because if you just go off the deep end and do only spiritual things, then it's going to lead to a little bit of roughness usually, and you need some physical activity to smooth things out. And so that's what I do during the day.
Fantastic. And what do you think happens when we die?
I think we go on. I think we go home. I don't think that this here on earth is the only place we have ever lived. I think that there are different layers and levels with where we go. And I believe that we, and from all I've read too, we go to school for a little while and learn to assimilate it, what we've experienced during our lifetimes. I think all of us are divine beings in physical form, and we go back to spend time with other aspects of divinity when we leave.
Yeah. And what's the spiritual book you've given as a gift most often?
I was thinking about that too, and I realized I haven't really given a lot of spiritual books as gifts. I used to live in Fairfield, Iowa, and there the books kind of made the rounds. Somebody would say, "Oh, did you read this Conversations with God? Neil Donald Walsh is speaking here in town," and it would just spread like wildfire through the community. So everyone just had the book at the same time.
Okay, that's great. What advice would you give someone just starting out on their spiritual path?
I do highly recommend transcendental meditation taught by a certified instructor. I know for me, that was the absolute best thing I could have done. And it helped keep me safe and growing until I was ready to do other things in my life. But I would choose, if you can't do that for whatever reason or don't want to, choose a good teacher and consult your inner guidance when you're looking for a good teacher. I can recommend several right off the bat.
It
Don't
just dawns me, you also do some group classes, don't you, as well,
I
online?
do. I do. I'm working with David, my ex, and actually, and Eli, my son, who, and he's the one, Eli is the one in charge of the whole Forever in Flow program that David and Eli have. And we just started a group program, and I'm one of the guides that they have to meet with people. So I am facilitating the Forever in Flow group program. And something like that is absolutely amazing. It's going to be a little less expensive. Working one-on-one with somebody is amazing. And if you can do it, that is great. But working in a group also has its own charm and its own benefits, because you get the benefit of what everybody else needs. And in the group situation, if a healing is done, and I do healings on every call that we have, if a healing is done, it affects everybody and it benefits everybody as well. So those are several things that I would recommend.
Fantastic. So, Laura, what's the best way for people to reach you who want more info?
You can email me, and let me see what email I put down here. Allura at letyourgoddessshinethrough.com. That would be
Fantastic.
fine. And please go to the link, get the book while it's still 99 cents. And then that way you can get the benefit of everything good that's coming through with the book. And when I was working with the Divine Mother, we started out with the intention to infuse within the book all this amazing consciousness and good things, so that it would be a transformational experience for everyone who read the book as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And just a few things. Can you finish these sentences? The world needs
Love. Love. It's an old answer. It seems trite sometimes, but it's absolutely true. It's the most powerful force in the universe.
I believe in
Love and the divine. I trust.
love is
Far more than we give it credit for being. It's a powerful force that can be used for good. It is capable of healing everything.
I would like to thank
I would like to thank you, Barbara, for having me on your show first. And I would like to thank Divine Mother and God for giving me so many tools and so many experiences and so much guidance in my life in general, and any other divine being of love and light who came along to help.
Yeah. I am ready to forgive.
I try to be, always. Sometimes it takes a while. We're all works in progress, and I'm no different. Sometimes I see things happening in the world that just get my ire up, and I don't know what to do with it for a little while. And then I remember, get back down, down girl, we can settle this. And you can forgive in your heart. And when you send love and forgiveness to people, even if you think they're not very nice people and not worthy of all that, that can only help them. And I need to remember that as much as everybody else.
That's good. And last but not least, I want my legacy to be.
Connecting as many people as possible with the divine.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Allura, I really am thrilled that you were able to join us on our show here. And please like and heart and leave a comment here. I'd like to hear what was the most useful part of this interview for you. And please, please go and buy Allura's book. It's a short read, but it is a powerful read. So thank you so much for coming on, Allura, and hope to connect with you again soon.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Take care.